when I got to know about what Vanlife is, I was a high school student. I saw a picture on Instagram, and on it, there was an American couple sleeping in a van in front of the Grand Canyon. And I was shocked because I couldn't believe people could live like this. Then I found out that if I can speak English and leave Japan, I'll be able to understand more about the outside world better. So I decided to go to Michigan in the United States to study abroad. And that was the best choice I ever made. I entered university and I became even more curious about the outside world. And I chose Chinese literature as my major. I started to think about my future career, and I thought studying Chinese was the smart choice for me because the market for Chinese speakers was getting bigger and bigger. So I decided to go to Shanghai, China, to study abroad for 2 years. After studying in China for several months, the COVID-19 pandemic began to be more widespread. And I could only go back home to Japan and take online classes. After a few months of studying classes, I became stressed out. It's a COVID. My everyday routine was seeing the same room, meeting the same professors, and experiencing the same academic society. This everyday routine made me uneasy. So I started to think, how can I get out of this dull and tedious life? That was when I came up with Vanlife. So what is Vanlife? I rented a tiny van and I brought a laptop, a sleeping bag, and a portable battery that I borrowed from my friend. And just like that, my ever first Vanlife journey had begun. So my first stop was at Mount Fuji, and it was my first solo driving experience at a highway and my first night sleeping in a van. I would wake up to the melodies of birds chirping, the gentle sound of waves, and the bright sunshine. After that, I would go for a walk on the beach with a cup of coffee that I would make for myself. When my online class began, I would open my laptop and went on my classes. When all my classes ended, I would eat cup noodles and look for nearby hot spring. Finally, I would drive back to the place to park and look for another beautiful view. To me, it really made me feel free, as it had been a while since I was in the United States, and I loved it. I loved this daily life. Then I decided to keep traveling even after I graduated from university. So after a few weeks of traveling, I finally ran out of money because I was a high school student and a college student. Then I came back to home in Tokyo. So back in Tokyo, something called shukatsu, which means a fixed period of time where people job hunt, had begun. Shukatsu is a unique part of Japanese culture where 1 year before graduating, we start to wear black suits and dye our hair back to black. My university was kind enough to teach us how to do specific makeup for shukatsu and also taught us the self-analyze. Then when you're ready, you're good to go for over 40 company interviews. To keep traveling after graduation, I clearly decided by myself. But when shukatsu started, I was already participating in classes for shukatsu. Having a collectivism mindset was terrifying for me because even if I decided to live my own way, whenever Shuka starts, it makes me unconsciously overlook what I really wanted to do in my life. So there were two main points of shukatsu that caused me discomfort and hardship. Firstly, some of the students that I knew had negative attitude towards shukatsu would end up joining shukatsu whenever it started out of social pressure. And the phrase I often heard was 現実的に考えて, which means realistically thinking. And I hated this phrase, and I still hate this phrase. Anyways, secondly, whenever I would tell my shukatsu advisor that I might want to establish my own business, she would reply to me, "You should enter a company first and experience the corporate culture." I was shocked. Can you imagine how lonely it was to just pursue your dream, but none of the people were doing so? Why on earth do these people believe that reality is basically joining a company while wearing black suits? Why on earth does society exist only within the company? Reality is something we create by ourselves instead of giving in to peer pressure. Society is something we create by ourselves instead of erasing our own uniqueness. At this time, I had a clear image of losing myself if I kept going like this. So I asked myself, what do I really want in my life? Then, Vanlife came up to my mind again. So Vanlife in Japan is something viable only for old couples. But when I retire, will I really be still fit so that I can live out the van life? Or even when I turn 30 years old, will my parents or my future children be healthy enough so that I can live out the van life? And none of the timing was certain enough to live out the van life I want to. The biggest lesson I learned from studying in China was 明日和明日,明日何其多, which means tomorrow and tomorrow again. How many tomorrows will there be? I was totally careless. Then COVID came. So my study abroad in China was over without me having done anything interesting in China. The only thing I got from studying in China was a little improvement of my Chinese and tons of regret for not doing anything memorable. But now I know that the only thing that is certain is now. 明日复明日,明日何其多. This one phrase alone inspired me to quit shukatsu and start my van life. I worked tirelessly to get my van by working a part-time job and also tried by crowdfunding to collect money to convert the van. It was not easy by any means, but thanks to a lot of kind people, I was lucky enough to make the van life I always dreamt about really come true. When my dream van became a reality, the COVID-19 pandemic was starting to settle down, and the rest of my online studying abroad program had finished, so I went back to my university in Tokyo. On weekdays, I went to university from my van that's parked nearby university every morning, and after school, I went back to my van. On weekends, I would drive far away to enjoy nature, and I loved it. I loved this daily life. Meanwhile, many of my classmates had already found their jobs, but I wasn't really worried about myself. I mean, I was a little bit, but I wasn't really. Because there was always one common idea that successful entrepreneurs mentioned in their books. That is, if you pursue what you love with all your heart, it will eventually turn into money. I know. So after I pursued my van life with all my heart, how did it turn into money, you might wonder. So in the process of doing so, I realized two things that I never would have realized without my van life experience. In the first 3 months of converting my van, I realized that I love thinking about interior design, thinking about how to use this tiny little space efficiently and make it pretty. And it was fun. It was just so fun, and I could do this all day. So during my journey, I enjoyed meeting other van lifers and interviewing them. Then I found out that van life is not just a trip with freedom, but it holds great potential as future lifestyle. Especially as autonomous driving becomes more widespread. So, why are you living in a van? This is a question that I often asked while I was interviewing other van lifers. And one of my van lifers gave me a huge inspiration about the future prospects of van life. He's in his 50s, and his name is Rui. He travels with this tiny but fancy Asian-inspired van that he converted by himself. Rui used to run his own company and worked endlessly. But one day, the extreme amount of work pushed him to his limits, and he couldn't work anymore. So he decided to retire from the industry and unfortunately ended up not being able to leave his house for a while. But van life changed his life. He found this van life thing on YouTube, and the more he knew about the van life, the more he became interested in it. So he started van life. And I asked him, "Why are you living in a van?" He answered, "Because this car has wheels and it moves forward. When I'm at home, it feels like life is standing still. But when I'm traveling with this car, I feel like life is moving forward." I realized from what he said that van life condenses elements that re-energize people and leads them toward happiness. I found among my van life friends I met, including Rui, all had one thing in common. They really enjoyed their daily life, even though each had their own problems. They enjoyed every single moment of their life, full of satisfaction and a sense of peace and tranquility. They were easily moved by small things, and they enjoyed food, nature, and unexpected surprises. We gathered around bonfires, sang, laughed, and shed tears together. Yeah, I loved it, and I still miss it. So, in the meanwhile, I realized that I haven't really met any female van lifers. So I started to think, how can I, share this greatness of van life with women and present it as a future lifestyle? So, as a result, I established Japan's first camping car design office. I combined my love for interior design with van life to design the ideal camping cars for women. While several industry seniors gave me opportunities to pitch my idea, the most common question I was asked was, is there a demand for that? And my response was, I will create the demand, and if there's no demand, then I will create the culture. Since starting my business a year and a half ago, despite having no prior design experience, women of various ages and backgrounds from their 20s to their 60s now visit my office. And I am so grateful that my love for Vanlife can help other women to change their lives. During summer, I go to Hokkaido because it's cooler there, and during winter, I go to Okinawa because it's warmer there. And this is how I enjoy Vanlife now. So now I run my own business while living out my Vanlife. So my dream of Vanlife really came true by pursuing what I love with all my heart. And Vanlife in Japan, it's been amazing because Vanlife is in such a beautiful country where people, nature, and food, history, technology, and spirituality of its people are all harmoniously balanced. And besides that, we have a lot of convenience stores and free parking lots for Vanlifers and also hot springs. And I love it. So I believe that Vanlife is the most effective and quickest way to lead you what truly matters in your life by temporarily distancing yourself from several things such as your house, your social status, your relationships. Unlike seeking the outside world through studying abroad, Vanlife is more likely to be the entrance to your own inner world, where you confront yourself being in harmony with nature and full of freedom and peace. In summary, I'd love to pass on to you the great treasure that I found among the Vanlife journey. It may even help you to a life full of joy. It is your heart's compass. Everyone has this in their heart. Trust me, your heart is always way smarter and way more powerful than your brain. What begins with heart, what begins with joy ends in joy. All that's needed is the space to listen to your heart, the courage to trust it, and the willingness to really act on it. Your heart's compass will always guide you in the right direction. Thank you.